to back it up. There's no platinum to back it up. It hasn't been for ages. So, I mean, what's the difference? I mean, we're living in a society of numbers on a computer. So why? They can just we can have a deficit in this country like hella big. What difference does it make? It's just numbers.
It's just numbers, right? It's a Googleplex times 3.
What they could do is just reset it and start it out at 0 and start all over again.
Yeah, why not? You know, I'll tell you, I hate to play a Monopoly game with you and you're the banker because I got a feeling you'd never run out of money.
I probably wouldn't, but you would fast.
I know I would. I'd be bankrupt first round.
Now, last night, things on the backside of the moon. Yeah. I had a lot of people emailing me that. You know, they gotten pictures under the Freedom of Information Act, or they went on to NASA's website and downloaded images. And a lot of people were sending me images all night long of the backside of the moon and the moon. I have suspicion, or a lot of them, that, yes, I think we have bases on the backside of the moon. I also think there could be alien bases on the moon. I think it goes back long even before we ever got on the moon, that there's been bases there on the moon. I mean, some of these, you get these structures of huge, like, domes, structures of big complexes, and things like that.
I have seen some of those, yeah.
Yeah. It just makes me wonder, you know, why the government has not come forward and said, hey, the reason why we haven't gone back to the moon is it's nothing on the moon, so we didn't bother going back. Well, think about this. We had a famous astronaut announce when he stepped out of the capsule, look at those ships. Look at those alien ships. They're bigger than anything I've ever seen before. What's that tell you? It tells you something was there. Unless he didn't have enough oxygen going into his spacesuit or something.
That's a good point, too. But I do know one thing. We definitely got a few hundreds, if not thousands, of people got their fingers working to look this stuff up last night from our show. I bet you, talking about the pictures of the dark side of the moon and that kind of stuff. And, you know, another thing I was thinking about, you know that the Apollo 11 capsule, how thick do you think it was? And it went through, not once, but twice, the radiation belt around the moon and all the way back. How thick do you think it was that was protecting them from all that?
I don't know. Probably about 12 inches.
2.5 inches, 2.5 inches. That's almost unbelievable, isn't it?
That's scary there, too.
These are facts. You can look this up. Matter of fact, it's still on display at that one museum. I think it's in Seattle even, or I think so.
But again, I mean, why haven't we returned to the moon? There's well, I got a funny feeling we are on the moon. Okay? And what's the point? If we're already on the moon, why would we have to go back to the moon? So, I mean, if you already got bases on the backside of the moon, and you don't want the American public to know, are you going to spend the money, the technology of old technology? Because you're not going to all of a sudden come up with UFOs to go to the moon, right? So you're going to have to use old rockets, old technology to get the people to the moon, the astronauts. For why?
Well, I got a news break for you. NASA says we don't have that technology no more. They lost it.
Well, they donate the last rocket that they used to, you know, get us up in space up to the moon. They donated it about 6 months ago to some museum.
Yeah, but they said they lost it way before that. But the thing is, you would think that
they didn't lose it. What they did is the technology to build it. Okay, the jigs and all the all that stuff was destroyed. Mm-hmm. It's gone.
Well, you'd think they'd have a hard copy somewhere. You know, I'm just
they got the blueprints, they got the diagrams and all that stuff. The cost to build it would be extremely a lot of money to be. And again, we'd have to use older technology or whatever. What I'm saying is, people are used to seeing like our fighters, right? Or our aircraft that Boeing makes or Airbus makes. That's what they think our technology is. But if our technology is 100 years advanced than what we're seeing flying around on our, skies, then all of a sudden they can't come out with a spaceship and say, hey, this is actually what our technology is. Right? So to go back on the moon, they're going to have to create technology what they think that the population would expect. So that means making a capsule, putting it on a rocket, and sending it up.
Yeah, and another thing that our guest brought up, that Augie brought up last night, was he said that the Nazis went to the moon, toward the end of the war or something like that, I believe.
Yeah, he said one of them actually took off and left our planet, and maybe it's true. I mean, there's so much information out there, but then again, you find for this information, right? Disinformation, slamming it, saying it's all farce. Which one do you believe? Because they're both equal in weight. Yeah.
And one thing I found kind of intriguing, that at the end of the war in 1945, that one SS general and scientist there that invented the Glocka, it disappeared, and it was pretty much the same description as what ended up in Kegsburg, Pennsylvania, 20 years later.
Yeah, interesting. I find it interesting. In 1946, the United States created a jet fighter. From 45 to 46, they created a jet fighter capable of breaking the sound barrier. Now, Isn't that kind of strange that we didn't have the technology in the 40s? Otherwise, we would have had jets, right, during the World War II. But a year after and 2 years after World War II, all of a sudden we have jets.
Well, one thing, the Nazis had jets. They had stealth fighter. If they have, you can look. They had a plane that looked just pretty much the groundworks of our stealth fighters now. They had all that stuff, but it was too late at the end of the war, I guess. But you remember all them scientists, Operation Paperclip. It was a race between Russia to get them to our side, and then they they forgot about all their crimes and stuff and said, hey, help us out. Led by Werner and a few other of them.
No, they turned their head. They didn't care.
Right.
But I'm saying even that. Do you realize to go from 45, the end of the war, a year later, and we have jet fighters? Okay? Yeah. How could they build the jigs? How could they build all this stuff, come up with the engine, come up with all this stuff, and come up, pressurize all this stuff in a year's time? It just doesn't make logical sense.
No, that's like when Kennedy said we're going to go to the moon by the end of the decade or whatever he said there with that accent. But that we had a 10-year window to invent this technology and do it, and we had nothing. So that was kind of fast. So what you're saying is really fast. Exactly.
Yeah, technology went so fast, and then 1949, the B-47 bomber, built by Boeing's. Okay, the predecessor before the B-52. Right. a massive bomber. Okay, with jet engines, the design. Why didn't we have this during World War II? I can't believe just because we captured the scientists and we captured some of their planes in a year's time, we duplicated it 100 times. In other words, if you look at the fighters that the Germans had, their technology was really way out there. It wasn't very advanced. It was advanced for its time, but it wasn't advanced. The jets they had like the wheels, right? They took off and then it dropped the wheels, and then it had to land on its belly. That was one of their jets. Then they had problems where the engines weren't strong enough, or they couldn't only be up for like 5-6 minutes. So they run out of fuel. The type of fuel they used was the pilots. It was suicidal. They got into these jets, right? And the odds are that when they go to land, they're going to blow up.
Yeah, they basically was behind the wheel of a bomb. Is basically what it was. You're absolutely right. And another thing, honestly, at the turn of the century, we were still kind of riding horses and buggies, And you go fast forward 69 years, we're on the moon, but then you go fast forward another 50 years, and we're no further up than 200 miles above the Earth. What's up with that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I got a funny feeling the Space Force being created is nothing more than a farce. I think we already have a Space Force. I think we've had one for a long time. What I was trying to say, technology, to go from 1945 to go to 46 and come out with a jet, okay, that could break the sound barrier. And from what the Germans had in a year prior, to come out with that, it totally crazy. It tells us that the technology, we've had help. And I don't think it was helped by just the Germans. I think maybe what came over from Germany wasn't just all Germans.
Right. I agree with you. You know, it's like that story I reported on last night. It got declassified from the supersonic plans for a flying saucer that we had in the 1950s. Now, it never really took off, but it was declassified finally just recently. But that was, you know, again, how did they go from, like you're saying, a Mustang P-51 till a few years later, now you're talking supersonic flying saucer. Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, it doesn't make sense. Again, do some research, people. You'll see that we had fighters, jet fighters, in 1946. And then 47, 48, you know, they were already working on the B-47. It doesn't make logical sense. I don't care. I mean, technology was moving fast, too fast. Not normally at the right rate. Now, even if they had the German scientists, if we went just that 1 year, that scares me. If the Germans had that technology, just think another year later, they would have had fighters that would break the sound barrier. They would have won the war. But I don't think that's the case. I think after they lost the war, yeah, we got their scientists, but who knows? Maybe some of these scientists weren't from Earth. They might look like me and you, but maybe they weren't earthbound. And
right.
They started giving us technology in exchange for Hunt's 57 sauce.
That's a good point. You know, another thing, if Germany back in the 40s had 200-300 million people like we do, I got a feeling we'd all be sprechen Sie Deutsch right now. And these are scary thoughts.
I think so. Anyway, we're going to go on break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. You're listening to James Christbaum and me, and when we come back, we're going to continue on for about 5 minutes, and then our great guest, Neil R. Storey, will be on talking about Jack the Ripper. So stay tuned.
You and I were living in the strangest of times on my hill, watching while the cities rise from the collapse that we left when the sun beat it down to the valley.